You know when you buy a game and you really like it? Think it's the best thing you've played in a long while, and then you're hit with the news that the game is getting a brand new edition. New content, updated gameplay, tons of changes that all sound incredibly appealing, and then you find out you have to buy it again. They aren't going to let you upgrade that old stinky version. You have to buy the brand new shiny version for full price. Well, that's what people have been dealing with as far as ATLUS goes for years. Decades even. And that could all be changing. Maybe.
Although it's not like this is the last time we'll see one another.
ATLUS really likes their re-releases. It's almost expected that an ATLUS game will get an enhanced edition several years down the line. So what exactly does this entail? Aren't re-releases just a normal thing? Well, kind of. Those of you not well acquainted with ATLUS might be thinking about those things called complete editions, where a game is repackaged with all its existing DLC and sold at full price sometime after launch. The benefit essentially being that you no longer have to buy the full price game with the full price DLC. You, as someone who waited probably about 2 to 3 years, are able to buy the game at the full price, $60 or $70, with all the DLC that's been released over time packaged into one thing. These versions of the game are typically compatible with the original. As an example, if you buy Street Fighter VI Year 1 to 2 edition, you can play with players who bought the original Street Fighter VI, whether they own the DLC or not. That's your typical completed edition release. No harm done to anyone who waits for it, and no harm done to the people who buy everything on release. In the end, everyone gets the same game, and no one's being asked to buy the same content twice. ATLUS re-releases are different. They typically package in all the DLC from the original, but the re-releases come with brand new story content, new characters, extra quality of life features, and even some added details to the background that you're not going to see in the original. These are standalone titles that enhance the originals, but that content must be purchased again to experience the new stuff. Here's Persona 5 with brand new confidants, a whole extra story chapter, but you can't buy it as DLC for the original. You have to pay us a good $60 for the whole thing. And this practice has gotten so predictable that many people are just skipping out on the initial release and waiting for ATLUS to eventually drop the complete version of a game, so to speak. People are obviously not incredibly fond of this practice, but many, myself included, still continue to buy ATLUS games regardless. However, there has been a lot of discontent stewing for this practice, and it wouldn't be surprising if the average person has just stopped buying ATLUS games on release because they assume that they will be able to buy an enhanced edition roughly 1 to 2 years down the line.
I've come to make an announcement.
At an investor Q&A, SEGA, the parent company of ATLUS, was questioned on the drop in sales of their titles released in the past fiscal year compared to the previous year. And I'm not going to get that deep into how misguided that question is if you actually compare the 2 fiscal years, but SEGA responded saying that part of it could be due to rival titles in the same genre, as well as the initial price for the games. But the thing we're looking at here is that they also said that players might be expecting definitive editions of their titles, which would make them hesitant to buy the games on launch at full price. But to make sure you get the full story, the SEGA spokesperson also said that they haven't been able to pinpoint the exact reason for this drop in sales, but they also believe that their marketing was not sufficient enough to appeal to users. Breaking this down into simpler terms, SEGA is aware that re-releases are likely having an impact on their bottom line. However, the reason behind lower sales this fiscal year is multifaceted and cannot be attributed to just one thing. Investors are also not the sharpest tools in the shed when it comes to video games. If I show you the games launched in the past fiscal year versus 2024's, some things will probably be a bit more apparent as to why sales are higher. So in short, this statement is not the "you shall be free from all re-releases" that some people might be making it out to be. That said, moving away from re-releases would also not surprise me.
More evidence!
there really isn't concrete proof that SEGA or ATLUS has started to hold back on re-releases yet. There are things that can be used as evidence, but I would argue not enough time has passed to guarantee these things to be the case. Soul Hackers 2 released over 3 years ago and still has not had an enhanced re-release. However, from what we know, the game had pretty poor reception and overall lackluster sales. Both of these have potentially led ATLUS to see no reason to attempt to breathe new life into a project that ultimately couldn't perform well on initial launch, and likely wouldn't perform well with a re-release due to existing reception being mixed. Persona 3 Reload's expansion pass could also be used as evidence in the future that ATLUS has stopped doing re-releases, but for now, it remains an outlier from the norm. That is likely due to the circumstances of that DLC that was seemingly not approved until base game's development was complete, and because there was a decent outcry for the answer and FemC to make a return in Persona 3 Reload. Only one of these got answered, with a DLC, although I do believe that P3R is done and dusted. You'll see the occasional person who still believes we'll get a re-release with the female main character. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen, as it has only been 2 years since P3R, and a FemC edition would likely require 2 to 3 years to make, given how much voice work and changes need to be made. Also, in the interview with Hashino about the future of Metaphor, he notes that while an enhanced re-release is not currently in development, they are not writing off the possibility, which lends to the potential idea that they are still in consideration to work on these kinds of re-releases. And most obviously, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance was released in 2024, which is not that long ago. While it is likely an enhanced edition was greenlit pretty close to the release of the game in 2021, a lot can change in 2 to 3 years. It's possible they had a whole restructuring outlook on this during that time, but SMT5 Vengeance was already in development. Simply put, it's really too early to guarantee anything unless Sega comes out and flat out says that they are done with re-releases.
Hell yeah! Merry Christmas!
He didn't hear a word of that.
I think it's a good thing that Sega realizes that enhanced re-releases are a potential issue. There isn't a good reason that most of the enhanced edition content cannot be retroactively patched into the original, even if you have to buy the whole DLC pass in order to get that content. It stirs the discontented pot. And nowadays, when you get bad press, you get a lot of bad press. While I think the quality of the product is usually not the issue, the problem with these enhanced re-releases is that you're building an audience who will just wait. And that waiting can make or break sales for the initial project, to the point where an enhanced re-release doesn't even get approved. You can't make a game with the thought in mind that you're going to re-release it again in 2 to 3 years with added content, because that just kind of sours the whole experience. And if people see a game release and would have bought it but decide against it because of the potential re-release that you always do, you will not be selling as many copies at full price. You can argue that for every person who doesn't buy it initially, there is one that will, and that one that will also buy it again at full price. But eventually those die-hard fans come to an end. Most people are casual fans of things. They are not going to buy the same game twice. I think the wiser route is releasing DLC expansions and then selling the original game packaged with that DLC down the line. Everyone wins in that situation. And we don't have evidence to prove that Sega will shift. It's not going to be instant evidence. You're not guaranteed just because Persona 3 Reload had DLC instead of a second release. It's going to take either Sega full out saying it in an official statement, or another decade without a single re-release to prove that they're done with this practice. So in short, there's no reason to celebrate yet. I for one believe that stepping away from the practice is overall a good thing, because the suckers like me who will buy the game multiple times on one platform are far and few between. And you can let me know what you think of Sega's statement in the comments down below. As always, you can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel for more things Persona, ATLUS, and JRPG related. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Is this
Okay.
the end?
Oh god, I hate this boss, man.